Most people don't feel lost all the time. They feel tired. They feel like they're running, but nothing is changing. Like life is a long hallway where every door looks the same. You wake up, check your phone, feel that small drop in your stomach, and think, I should be further by now. Not rich, not famous, just further. You've done what you were told. You studied. You worked. You waited. You watched others pass you. Some younger, some louder, some are less careful. And every time someone says, don't compare yourself, it somehow makes it worse. Because comparison isn't the problem. Confusion is. You start asking quiet questions you don't say out loud. Why does it feel like everyone else got a head start? Why does effort not seem to match results? Why am I busy all day but still stuck in the same place year after year? You scroll through success stories that don't feel real. You hear advice that sounds nice but changes nothing. And slowly, a dangerous thought settles in. Maybe I'm just behind. Maybe I missed my chance. That thought doesn't scream. It whispers. It shows up at night when the house is quiet. It shows up when you see your bank balance, when you think about your age, when someone asks what you're doing with your life, and you give a safe answer instead of the honest one. You don't feel like a failure. You feel like you're wasting potential, like there's something you're supposed to be doing, but no one gave you the rules. And the worst part isn't the struggle. It's the feeling that you're working hard in a game you don't even understand. What if the reason you feel behind isn't because you're slow, lazy, or broken? What if it's because you're measuring yourself by a scoreboard that was never meant for you? A game where the rules reward speed over depth, noise over skill, luck over patience. Think about it. If everyone around you is sprinting, standing still feels like losing. But what if the race you're in isn't a race at all? What if it's something else entirely? Something quieter, slower, something that doesn't clap for you every step, but pays you back over time. Most people never stop to ask this. They just push harder. They burn out. They blame themselves. They accept a small life because it feels safer than asking a big question. But there's a moment, usually after years of trying, when something feels off enough that you can't ignore it anymore. A moment where you start to wonder if the problem isn't you at all. And that moment is where everything begins. He was 32 years old, and every day looked almost the same. The alarm went off at 6:30, not because he loved mornings, but because he couldn't afford to be late. He lay in bed for a few seconds, staring at the ceiling, already tired. Not the kind of tired sleep fixes. The deeper kind. The kind that sits behind your eyes. By 7:15, he was in the shower, replaying conversations in his head, things he should have said, chances he didn't take. By 8:30, he was in traffic, moving slowly with hundreds of other people who all looked focused, serious, and quietly unsure. No one talked. Everyone scrolled. His job wasn't terrible. That was the problem. It paid just enough. It was stable, predictable, safe. He answered emails, sat in meetings, solved small problems that reset every morning. By lunch, he was already counting the hours left, not because he hated the work, but because it didn't move anything forward. It just kept things from falling apart. He told himself he was being responsible. He told himself this was adulthood. But something felt off. Every few months, he promised himself he would change, learn a new skill, start something on the side, get serious. And for a week or two, he did. Then life stepped in. Overtime, family needs, exhaustion. The plan quietly faded. Evenings were the hardest. He got home around 7, ate whatever was easy, sat down just for a minute. That minute turned into hours. Videos, news, other people's lives, other people's wins. He didn't feel jealous, just numb, like he was watching life instead of living it. On weekends, he slept more than he wanted to admit, not out of laziness, out of recovery. Sunday nights came with a familiar tightness in his chest. Monday again, same cycle, same feeling of being busy without being built. Friends were moving forward in visible ways. Engagements, promotions, businesses, even failures that looked meaningful. When they asked how he was doing, he smiled and said, "Good." Just busy. That answer felt safer than the truth. The truth was harder to explain. How do you say you feel stuck when nothing is technically wrong? He wasn't broke. He wasn't unhealthy. He wasn't unhappy all the time. And that made the frustration worse, because he felt like he had no excuse. Like wanting more meant being ungrateful. Late at night, when the house was quiet, he sometimes imagined a different version of himself. Not a fantasy life, just one where his days pointed somewhere, where effort stacked instead of evaporating, where time worked for him instead of against him. But every morning, the alarm rang again, and he stepped back into the same routine, telling himself he'd figure it out later. What he didn't know yet was that later was getting closer, and something was about to force him to stop drifting and finally look at the truth he'd been avoiding. The breaking point didn't come as a dramatic explosion. It came quietly, on an ordinary Tuesday. He was sitting at his desk when an email popped up. Short, polite, a company-wide message announcing a round of restructuring. New roles, new leadership, opportunities ahead, it said. 10 minutes later, his manager asked him to step into a small room with glass walls. The conversation lasted 7 minutes. His role wasn't gone, but it was shrinking. Less responsibility, same pay, fewer chances to grow. The manager kept saying it wasn't personal, that the company was going in a new direction. He nodded, said he understood, shook hands, and walked back to his desk like nothing had happened. But something cracked. That night, he sat in his car long after getting home. Engine off, lights out, phone face down on the seat. For the first time in years, he didn't distract himself. He just sat there and felt it. The weight, the fear, the realization he'd been pushing away. If I stay here, this is my life. Not just this job, this pattern. Waiting, reacting, hoping someone else would notice his effort and reward it. He saw the next 10 years clearly. Same routine, slight raises, more responsibility without meaning. Telling himself he was lucky while quietly shrinking. The fear wasn't about money. It was about time. About waking up at 45 and realizing he'd played it safe for so long that he forgot what he wanted. About explaining to his future self why he never tried. That night, he did something small but different. He took out a notebook he hadn't used in years. No motivational quotes. No big plans. Just one question written at the top of the page. What am I actually building? He stared at it for a long time. The answer scared him because it was honest. Nothing. He was maintaining, surviving, staying busy. But he wasn't building a skill that compounded. He wasn't creating leverage. He wasn't choosing a direction. He was letting the default path decide for him. That truth hurt, but it also brought a strange calm. Because for the first time, the problem was clear. He wasn't behind because he lacked talent or discipline. He was behind because he'd never chosen a game worth playing long-term. At 1:12 a.m., he made a decision. Not a dramatic one. Not quitting. Not blowing up his life. Just a quiet promise to himself. I will stop spending my best hours maintaining a life I don't want. He didn't know how yet. He didn't know what it would look like. But he knew one thing for certain. Tomorrow couldn't look the same. That decision didn't fix anything overnight. But it changed something more important. It gave him a direction. The insight didn't come from a podcast or a book. It came from watching someone else move differently. A few weeks after that night, he stayed late at work to finish a task that didn't really matter. On his way out, he noticed the lights still on in a small conference room. Inside was an older colleague named Daniel, mid-40s. Quiet, rarely talked in meetings. Not flashy, but everyone respected him. Daniel wasn't grinding. He was focused. One notebook, one screen, no rushing. They talked for a few minutes. Nothing deep at first. Then, almost without thinking, he asked, "How did you get where you are?" Not the title, not the money, the calm. Daniel smiled. Not a big smile, a knowing one. He said, "I stopped trying to win the same way everyone else was." They got coffee the next day. Then once a week after that. Daniel didn't talk about passion or hustle. He talked about systems. About how most people spend 10 hours a day reacting and maybe 30 minutes building something that matters. He said the real divide isn't talent. It's direction. You can work hard in the wrong game for 20 years and still lose, Daniel said. Or you can play a boring game that compounds. He explained it simply. Choose one skill that stacks. One that gets more valuable with time. Not 10. One. Then protect 2 hours a day like your future depends on it. Because it does. 2 hours. 5 days a week. That's 10 hours. In a year, that's 500 focused hours. In 3 years, 1,500. Most people never put that much deliberate time into anything. Daniel had done this quietly. No announcements. No shortcuts. He chose a skill aligned with his temperament. He tracked progress weekly. He measured effort, not outcomes. He ignored noise. That's why he looked calm. The system wasn't exciting. That was the point. It didn't rely on motivation. It relied on structure. Same hours. Same place. Same rule. No distractions. No multitasking. Just deep work on one thing that moved the needle. Emotionally, it worked because it removed pressure. He didn't have to change his life. He just had to show up for 2 hours. Log the time. Improve slightly. Then stop. Logically, it worked because effort finally stacked. Instead of resetting every Monday, progress carried forward. Skills grew. Confidence followed evidence. That night, he wrote a simple plan. 1 page. Skill 1. Schedule. 6 to 8 a.m. rule, no phone. No exceptions on weekdays. Timeline. 1 year before judging results. No fantasies. No deadlines. Just consistency. For the first time, the future didn't feel overwhelming. It felt organized. He didn't feel excited. He felt grounded. And that's how he knew it was real. The first week was harder than he expected. Not because the work was difficult, but because everything inside him resisted it. The alarm rang at 5:30 a.m., and his body argued back. Just today, sleep more. Just today, start tomorrow. He sat on the edge of the bed, negotiating with himself like a child. Most mornings, he won by a small margin. Those 2 hours felt slow. No music. No phone. No quick hits of progress. Just effort. Some days he stared at the screen, unsure if he was even improving. Other days he finished the session feeling behind, not ahead. After 2 weeks, the doubts grew louder. What if this is a waste of time? What if I picked the wrong skill? What if I'm just lying to myself again? No one noticed his effort. There were no compliments. No visible changes. At work, nothing was different. Life didn't clap for him. And that loneliness was new. When you stop talking about plans and start working quietly, you realize how much noise you used to hide behind. By the second month, he missed a few days. Then a full week. Old habits tried to pull him back. Late nights. Comfort scrolling. The familiar numbness waited patiently. What brought him back wasn't motivation. It was something simpler. He looked at his log. 48 hours of focused work already done. That number mattered. It was proof. Small but real. So he returned. Not perfectly. Just consistently. Around month 3, something shifted. Not externally. Internally. The work felt less heavy. He moved with more confidence. He knew what to do when he sat down. The resistance didn't disappear, but it softened. By month 6, results appeared in quiet ways. He spoke differently in meetings. He noticed patterns others missed. He felt less rushed. More deliberate. A side opportunity came from a conversation he wouldn't have been ready for a year ago. He didn't feel transformed. He felt sturdier. The most surprising change wasn't skill. It was identity. He stopped seeing himself as someone trying to get unstuck. He started seeing himself as someone who builds daily, regardless of mood. Progress was still slow. Some weeks felt flat, but it was no longer fragile. Missing a day didn't collapse everything. He returned without shame. One morning, months later, he realized something simple and powerful. He no longer felt behind. Not ahead. Not successful. Just on his own path. And that changed everything. If you're ready for the final chapter, say continue. Years later, the difference wasn't loud. There was no moment where everything suddenly made sense. No single win that changed his life. What changed was how he stood in the world. He was no longer chasing urgency. He moved with intention. His days had a center now. Work was still work, but it no longer defined him. It funded the parts of his life that mattered. The skill he chose had grown quietly, steadily. It opened doors he didn't force. Conversations shifted. Opportunities felt natural instead of desperate. When people asked what changed, he struggled to explain it. Because from the outside, his life looked ordinary. Same city, similar schedule. But internally, he felt aligned. He trusted his direction. He wasn't waiting to be picked anymore. The truth he learned was simple and uncomfortable. Most people aren't behind in life. They're just playing games that don't reward who they actually are. They're competing on speed when they're built for depth, on visibility when they're built for craft, on noise when they're built for consistency. The world pushes one scoreboard. Money by 30, titles by 35, recognition as fast as possible. But those rules are optional. You can step out without quitting your life. You can choose a longer game, one where progress compounds instead of resets. The lesson wasn't about discipline alone. It was about respect, respecting your time, your attention, your energy, choosing where they go instead of letting the default take them. Tomorrow doesn't need a full reinvention. It needs one decision. Pick one skill that stacks over years. Block 2 hours. Same time, same place. No phone, no negotiation. Track hours, not results, for the first 90 days. You will feel slow, invisible, unsure. That's how real progress feels at the start. If it feels boring, you're probably doing it right. Don't wait for confidence. Let evidence build it for you. Don't compare your chapter 1 to someone else's chapter 10. They're playing a different game. And when the doubt comes back, as it will, ask yourself one quiet question. Am I behind, or am I finally playing my own game? That answer will change how you wake up tomorrow.